My name is Angelina Daniels, and my question was, why is Youngstown so segregated, with African Americans living in the city while whites live in the suburbs? As someone who had bounced around a lot during her childhood, I had originally believed that Youngstown was super integrated and equal. However, after doing this research, I do not believe that anymore. And in order to address that question, we have to look at Youngstown back in the past in order to attend to the answer. So, from the 1910s throughout World War II, the population of African Americans jumped from 1,936 all the way up to 21,000. And this was heavily dependent upon the steel industry that existed and the wars going on. For many people in Youngstown, not just African Americans, the steel industry was where their families were living and working and surviving off of. However, during the 1970s, the plants began to close and a lot of people lost their jobs. One of the biggest effects was the Youngstown Sheet and Tube closing, which happened in 1977 on September 19th, which ended up affecting 5,000 people along with the population of the city. And in turn, due to this, some schools, such as South High, which was originally an African American school, had to close, which caused the students from there and around the areas to go to the remaining schools or to migrate towards opportunities. And this included both black and white students. So, Youngstown started out segregated, like many cities across the United States, and Westlake Terrace became the first housing projects, with this being where African Americans were forced to move into. As such, something called a color line was imposed, where specific shades of skin tones were living in certain areas of the projects. And by this, I mean that those who had lighter skin were allowed to live closer towards the white neighborhoods, while those who didn't were forced to live towards the back of the project. So fast forward today, Youngstown currently has an estimated population of 66,687 people, with 31,813 being white, 27,230 being African American, 404 Asian, 269 Native American, 6 Pacific Islander, other race being of 1,124, and those who are mixed, 3,937. So, here's where we get into the question. So, one of the top reasons I believe why blacks live mostly in the city while whites live in the suburb is due to education. So, the places that scored the lowest in terms of education was Youngstown, Toledo, Dayton, and Cleveland, Ohio. According to Mahoning Matters, they stated that of the country's 100 largest metro areas, Youngstown, Warren, and Boardman ranks the lowest in terms of opportunity for black children on the Child Opportunity Index 2.0. Opportunity for black children in Youngstown was scored at a 3 out of 100, compared to white children in Youngstown, whose opportunity was scored at a 50. And the above statement that I just mentioned was built from factors such as poverty rate, education quality, and pollution. This shows the gap held between very high and very low opportunity neighborhoods. For example, very high opportunity neighborhoods, which mostly have white people, they have access to good education, they have access to technology such as computers, they have access to internet, they have chances and opportunities to go on field trips and meet people and authors and such as that. While lower opportunity neighborhoods don't have that chance, and instead they don't have as good materials, the teachers don't care sometimes, and other things along those lines, which in turn makes education not as important in that area. So another factor that would affect the living situation is work and jobs. So The unemployment rate in Youngstown, Ohio is nearly triple what it is for white people in that city, which is astounding. Um, and according to research provided by Jacob Witten at the Brookings Institution, in 1980, the average family, black family in Youngstown, made 18% less than the average black family nationally. However, 2017, the average black family makes makes 20,646, which is a little more than half of what the income of the average black family makes nationally. So, meaning Youngstown is one of the areas where their African Americans aren't making as much, and something to contribute to this is their wages. The average wage nationally for African Americans is they earn about 78 cents for every median dollar a white worker would make, according to a New York Times analysis from earlier a couple years ago. And this is due to a couple reasons, one of them being obviously racist employers. This is also due to renewals of cities where they destroy schools, libraries, homes, where they evict people who have nowhere else to go other than the projects or places such as there. And while a lot of white people are mostly able to leave the area, some African Americans aren't, just because of how little they earn compared to African Americans nationally and also white people. Another thing that I found that I believe affects this is due to health. I couldn't find a lot for this, but I believe it's partially due to people who aren't able to afford health care, because averagely 9.7% of African Americans don't have insurance, while 5.7% of whites do, according to 2018 statistics. And in 2016, while black and white women were diagnosed with breast cancer at the same time, the death rate was higher for African American women, according to the Vindicator. So the living situation is dependent on three situations, in my opinion. It's the education, the work and jobs, and also health care. And because of all these factors, it affects the way that they live and how they struggle to survive, because many are just getting by on things such as food stamps, working minimal wage jobs, pretty much breaking their back in places that don't really deserve them. And so that is what I found. Thank you.